winning does not guarantee confidence. They're two completely different things, the whole winning and confidence thing. And I think from all the work that we've both done on ourselves, and especially the work I've done on myself, like it changes the way that success lands.
Happy Monday! Super welcome to the podcast. As always, I got Lorna together with me here today, and if this is the first episode that you're listening to, then make sure you hit the follow button so you don't miss out on any of our future episodes. And if you haven't heard about it yet, we have a competition running at the moment in which you can win a free one-on-one coaching call together with either me or Lorna. All you need to do is subscribe to our YouTube channel, and you'll find the link to do so in the show notes. And of course, you also need to submit a form with your details so we can actually contact you if you won this competition. So all you need to do is go to the show notes, or you go to mindeq.eu/YouTube launch, and you'll find all the information. Right on, Lorna, let's dive in. Today we're going to talk about how we sometimes, even though we do like really, really well, we even win competitions, and still we get into a little bit of bad frame of mind because of certain feedback that we get. Maybe you can share the story that we have in mind to kind of give a little bit more context.
Absolutely, thank you. A whole weekend actually, I did 2 dressage tests on Saturday and I won them both, and then I went jumping on Sunday and I came second, and then I won that one. So you'd think I'd be sat here singing from the rooftops, my ego is over the moon, and it was over the moon. It was over the moon, but there were some challenges within that for sure. Obviously, with dressage, you get your sheet and you get all your little comments, and they're absolutely true. They're fair comments. And actually, with dressage, I feel like the scores were actually better than the work that I produced, which is a really weird thing. But I think that is our state of mind that we're in at that time. So I'll dig into that in a minute. Yesterday, I went jumping, stuck to my definition of success, which was to keep rolling forward to all defences, try not to look for the distances by rolling forward, and obviously it worked out. I think I got one cheapy distance that he ran into. Other than that, I didn't miss one. Yes, I perhaps was slightly overloaded in places. So you come out and happy as Larry. Got back home as I always did, sent my videos to my trainer, and she gave me feedback. Now, what my mind did in that moment, which was really interesting, I want to share it with everyone, is it deleted, generalised all the really positive stuff that she said. She didn't say anything harsh, nothing critical. She gave me points that we can make it better to carry into future rounds. So this gave me a massive realization of it's not the feedback, it's what our mind does with that feedback in the moment.
Yeah.
What do you think of that?
Yeah, it's super, super interesting. And I love that you're taking this up, because I think there's so many people that can relate to this. It's like, you've literally won 3 classes in a row. Three classes you've ridden. Dressage and show jumping, and you've literally got proof right there that you're doing really well, right? Mm-hmm. Your trainer has also said in those messages, because I know your trainer, she said a bunch of really positive things. And then the one thing, out of all those positive results and all the positive feedback, the one thing that you pick out of that is like, oh, there's some things here I need to do better. And then you completely see and you're not alone in doing this. We all do this, right? But it's interesting, and I think it's so useful if we can, throughout this podcast, talk about how we can turn all that around, and how we can literally just, first of all, take a moment to be proud of ourselves and be happy about the achievements that we have and the positive feedback, but ultimately how we can also just see the improvement points, let's say, as something without judgment, with something also positive, really. It's like, oh, I have an opportunity. I did really well and I'm really proud. And those points that they're saying, it's also great because it's an opportunity for me to get even better, rather than, going down in that black hole of self-judgment or self-criticism and going really down about it.
Yeah. Actually, one thing I am, I guess, really proud of is that, and I always say this, winning does not guarantee confidence. They're two completely different things, the whole winning and confidence thing. And I think from all the work that we've both done on ourselves, and especially the work I've done on myself, like it changes the way that success lands, because none of that is about the place. Like, none of that is about winning. Like, genuinely not one of it is about that. It's about staying consistent, showing up, staying in control of your mind, your body, like all of those kind of things, which I absolutely felt like I did, I guess. And I guess that's when sometimes, even though feedback is well intended, and I speak not just for myself, probably for the majority of our clients as well, why then does it not feel so good? You know, if you've gone out there, like I tell everyone, try your best, you've done your definition of success, yes, things can always be better, like 100% sitting here preaching to myself. But then sometimes, and I'll ask you that question, I guess, why do you think it doesn't feel so good when we know? And I spoke to a lady this morning actually who said exactly the same thing, and different to my trainer, but her trainer was like, she came out and she was really happy, and you know, she'd done everything she said she was going to do, and her trainer was like, yeah, that wasn't great riding. So yeah, I guess I'll put that over to you and maybe just ask you why it doesn't feel so good sometimes, even though, you know, you've won a class, you've tried your best, you've done everything that you set out to do, then why does our mind then distort and delete all this information?
Yeah, it's super good question, right? And a question that I love. And it's obviously one thing is that it comes down as a threat. It comes down to our survival, and anything. Like going back to the cave age, we've spoken about this in the past in the podcast. We had to. A lonely human was a dead human, basically. You have to be part of a tribe, you know. And any kind of negative feedback or anything that, you know, criticized that you were a worthy part of the tribe was a threat. Like, it was a threat to your survival, because you could potentially get pushed out of the group and not belong anymore. That means you're dead, right? These were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years ago, right? But our brains hasn't changed that much. So I think it's important to understand that this comes out to survival, and you see feedback or you see these kind of comments like a threat. And therefore, we take it so, like, it gets blown out of proportion, because, like, the fact that people say that we're doing great and things like that, yeah, okay, good to hear. But survival is always going to come on the first place. Like, we're always going to be focused in on that more. And thank God we're doing it, because, yeah, you know, good. It's good to be able to survive, right? But I think it's important to put this into perspective and realize that I'm no longer living in the cave age, and feedback does no longer threaten my survival. Actually, in the safe surrounding that I'm living here, I am safe, and this can actually only help me get better.
Yeah, I 100% agree, and I think it's really cool because it deletes all that positive, like you say, to focus on what we perceive as relevant, essentially, because that, you know, in the cave times, that was going to keep us alive, that was going to help us to survive. So you're not consciously choosing to delete all that positive stuff at the start. You know, I think it's like in our coaching, sometimes I would always start with a positive, always start with something that somebody's done well, and then when you start to work on awareness points and getting better, you can see people's minds start to hone in on, it's not, nothing is ever negative, but the stuff that we're trying to work on and getting better, and you can see the disappointment in their faces. But this is how we get better. And I think, yeah, it's a real realization that you need to give yourself time to reflect also, because at first glance, when you read something, we delete so much of the information that's been provided, the gold information that's been provided.
Yeah, and I think, you know, this is you know, you can almost call this as an instinct, that we react, or we become like, to be hone in and we focus in on one little negative aspect or something possible. Like, I always like to compare this with horses, because horses are very instinctual they're not human beings, they're instinctual beings. And you know, if you take it into a horse perspective, if you want to give a horse a treat, they're gonna care about that, because that's the positive feedback in this you know, in this context, right? So the treat is the positive feedback. That's gonna work, and the horse is gonna be happy with that, as long as there is not a, like, I'm not saying lying or a dog running around, because the moment there is some kind of threat there, and there's like a bird flying out of the bushes, or a dog that's coming running, that horse is not going to care about that treat anymore. They're going to be like, hey, there's a dog over there that's trying to eat me, and they're just going to take off for their life, because that's their instinct. And I think you can compare that also with us, what's happened. Like, you know, that positive feedback, that's great as long as there's no threat involved. But the second there's a threat involved, that's all we're going to care about. We're gonna, you know, just as the horses, we're gonna step into our instincts, and we just gonna act on that. I think
it's really important to realize what's going on after that. So basically, everyone who gives you feedback has an intent, a positive intent, to be fair, and our interpretation of it. So, you know, if I really think about what she said, this is working, it's so much better than it was, here's what we're going to refine next, and we're going to turn it into something better. But my mind in that moment turned that feedback into some kind of massive performance edit that I thought, I'm over-egging it here, but some massive performance edit that I essentially had to start pulling apart.
Yeah, 100%. And I think that's a great, next step, because the benefit that we have, that the horses don't have, we can reason. So we can actually stop ourselves for a minute, and we can if we are able to step out of that emotional place and into a logical space, instead we can reason around this, right? And so how would you do that in that situation? What did you do?
Catch yourself, first of all. Exactly that. Awareness is everything. And obviously I had a huge awareness of what was actually going on in that moment, and I think that is the most awesome thing, because once you can catch yourself, especially for us, we can share every single experience. It's not that we always say this, we're never going to have those experiences. It's about catching yourself. So reflect back on it without emotion. That's the first thing, because that automatically will interrupt that, all those deletions, distortions, generalizations, and then actually really listen in and see what that person is actually saying to you, because really from a performance point of view, they're looking for the gold standard, because nobody would give you that feedback if you already didn't have a good base layer, a level that is good. Little things like your turns, making sure they really are in front of your legs, so you're not having to push off your seat. You're not having to, they're very, very small margins that are going to make things better when you step up. So really, once the emotion is gone from it, I would do a realistic evaluation of what that feedback actually is.
Yeah. And when you say realistic evaluation, what do you mean with that then?
So last time we talked a little bit about that red brain, blue brain. Red brain is when we're in that threat mode. We see everything as a threat. Blue brain, we see it as a challenge. So actually, the blue part of your brain, which I call it, is good for making plans, strategies, logic, all that kind of stuff. So actually, really, it's more dressage work. It's to be more supple out of a bigger canter. Did I already know that? Absolutely. I had a challenge with it through the week. So I already know that is something to work on. And I also know that when he's a little bit behind me, or I do a half halt too many, I then therefore have to react by either giving a stronger half halt or, pushing off a little bit off my leg or off my seat, which is one of my fallback habits. So really, what she is looking for is the gold standard of this smooth flowing round where you stick in one canter and one rhythm the whole way around. Is that easy to do? No, but it's something to strive for. It's something that's going to help you to jump those bigger rounds when you have that one canter and you can stay in that one canter and you don't feel the need to mess around with it or not trust yourself or any of those things. So really, what she's looking for is next level stuff. What my mind did in that moment was decided to distort all that information and say, hey, you might have done all this work and you might not have been jumping out this season and you might have gone out there and won a class, but hey, it's still not perfect, which we all know is bullshit.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's super interesting, because this is always the next step then. Like it comes down to how you interpret that feedback, which perspective that you come from. And you mentioned here two different perspectives. The first perspective, and this is what your mind did immediately. It's like, yeah, I've done all this work, but it's quote unquote still not good enough. And see, I'm never going to be good enough. That is, for me also the first thought that tend to pop in for me, like the interpretation that I make of something. But then exactly like you say, then you have to stop yourself for a moment. Well, you don't have to do anything, but this is what we suggest that you stop yourself for a moment and you look at like other ways in which you can interpret this. So like you said, actually what my trainer is looking for here is gold standard. Like she really, and that the reason why she says this is because she really believes in me and she really sees potential in me and she really wants to help me. And therefore she's giving me the feedback so that I can actually grow into an even better rider. She has my best in mind. And like, how does that change the way you feel about it?
Yeah, you see potential. You see a challenge. You no longer see a threat, like red brain. You see a challenge, which makes it blue brain. And we always say that the blue brain is always there. You need to have that pause. You don't have to. There we go with that word again. Ideally, you have that pause in the middle, which is what we did, or what I did last night. Not quite quick enough for my ideal standard, but anyway, awareness is everything, and it's something we can get better to. And without the experience I had yesterday, I probably would have carried that into the season, and it matters more mid-season when you start pulling yourself a bit apart like that. So actually it's a great experience to have at the start of the season that I can share with you and I can share with everybody else. So mindset work isn't always about thinking better, it's receiving information more accurately.
Mm-hmm.
Because those thoughts that you, as you always say, you can't control your first thought. It's still going to be there. We're humans, like you say, that whole threat thing, you know, lonely human's a dead human. We don't want to be left out. We don't want to be singled out. We don't want to be the shit rider. Mm. But let's start and receive it a bit more accurately, and then we do not become that person.
Yeah. Yeah. And this takes practice, right? Because when it comes to that instinctual response, that automatic first, like you say, the first thought, and we can't control the first thought. The first thought that's going to pop up is based on your beliefs. It's based on how your brain has reacted all those times. Like it based on the interpretation that it's made in the past, right? So all those times that you've made a mistake, your brain is so used to interpreting that as being a threat, a proof that you're not good enough, evidence that you're not good enough, and that neural pathway in your brain has become so good. It's so fast because you've used it so many times, right? How do you change that? Yeah, by consciously changing it to another pathway, choosing to take another path in your brain, choosing to build a neural pathway, a new connection in your brain that says, oh, actually, what this person says is because she loves me and she wants me to become better and she sees potential in me. But here's the thing, it's not gonna feel normal because it's not the way your brain usually thinks, right? So it's going to take effort in the beginning to start to create that connection. And for every connection you use, for every time you use the old connection, that one is gonna become stronger. So you wanna make sure that you use the new connection as much as you possibly can, and that you train that way of thinking into your brain. I feel like I'm talking very like high level right now. Does this make sense?
Yeah, absolutely does. I think it's all habitual behaviour. Unless we break that pattern, we keep doing the same thing, which is what you're saying. And if you've listened to us ramble on before, you know that we talk quite often about, you know, walking a path in long grass, which is essentially what you're saying. You know, our brain always wants to take the easy path, even though it might not be the most suitable path. Walking your dog, you're going to walk the path that's walked, you know, every single day by 10 people. But when we want to access new neural pathways, essentially we need to take ourselves off of the path that's well worn and put ourselves into the long grass and start, you know, walking this new path. Sounds easy. It's not, because every single time things get difficult or challenging, you want to start taking the easy route again. But training your mindset is training yourself to keep walking in that long grass, keep walking that freaking uncomfortable path, which we know is not easy, but that is your new pathway.
Yeah.
You need to train it like we train every other thing. And I also think allow yourself to enjoy those moments where you have been successful, you have hit your definition of success, and that's not about winning, that's just about setting out to do what you say you're going to do, before you actually start reflecting on it and finding what you need to do better, which we all do. But actually give yourself time to enjoy that moment, that success in that moment, and then do your reflection of, okay, so this could be better.
Yeah.
I believe both of those are parts of your performance. You are allowed to enjoy it, but also we need to journal and find the improvement parts. Yeah, and you know, I think that is. I think where you can get to a point where you can train yourself to see the improvement points also as something positive. That's ultimately where we want to get to. So actually, a learning or feedback isn't a quote unquote a bad thing. But again, this is a trained new way of thinking. And I love that you mentioned there the tall grass. I think that gives a really good metaphor for people. That is training your mind to take a different path. That is training your mind to think in a different ways. And the more you can do that, the easier it's going to get for your brain and think in that new way. But this takes consistency. Yeah. And by that new neural pathway, you're always training your mind to look ahead, to look to the future. Like, it doesn't always have to land and be so important in this moment. What we're doing is, yes, this moment is important, but we're also training our minds and our bodies and our horses for the future, rather than, you know, I keep saying it, but yesterday's competition was neither here nor there. It wasn't really a competition, it was a training. But rather than making it about that one training, which you put so much work and effort and everything into, it's actually not about that. And I know that, rationally, I know that, you know that. But our mind focuses in on that moment, like you say, that threat moment. But actually the challenge within this is, let's look ahead to how this can help us in the future. Let's look ahead to how this can help us in the rest of the season.
Yeah, 100%. And equals also in your mental game, right? Because this moment where you receive this feedback, it's also an opportunity. It's a practice round, let's say, in thinking in a different way. It gives you an opportunity to start to use that new connection in your brain to choose to interpret it in a way that is helpful.
Yeah, I think it's a really cool thing to work through, because you think, oh, you've jumped 2 clear rounds and you've won and been second, your confidence is sky high, and it's not because my confidence wasn't sky high, but I think it highlights the areas that I still need to get better in. Essentially, it's receiving feedback more accurately, even when things feel really good in the moment.
Yeah, no, and I love that you mentioned. I wrote it down. Winning doesn't equal confidence, like you said earlier on. I think that is such a good quote indeed, because if you don't feel like you're good enough in yourself,
100%.
It doesn't matter how successful you are, you're gonna see that one, even if it's just one, if you have done 99% things are evidence that you're crushing it at the moment. If you don't believe that you're good enough, you're gonna just hone in on that 1% that is proof that you're not good enough. And it doesn't matter how much you win and how successful you are. If you haven't fixed the inside first, you're still gonna go and look for that 1% and that is quote unquote proof that you're not good enough. The only way to change that is to start to rewire your brain and help your brain focus in on the things that are actually proof that you're getting better and that you are successful.
Yeah. Success doesn't fix your mindset. Training your mind does, but success won't. Or it will, but it'll be very short term. It'll be very outcome dependent.
When you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change.
Awesome. That's a very good way to end.
Yeah, that is a quote, but it is one that's really stuck with me, and it's it comes down to that thing. It's like the situation doesn't change, but the interpretation of that situation is down to you, and how you choose to interpret the situation is going to influence how you're going to feel.
Good.
Good. Well, as always, if anyone has any questions around any of this, you do know where to find us. Did you have something else to add to that, Lorna? Does that feel?
No, I just hope it's helped somebody else out there who's maybe gone through the same thought process. But yeah, just dig into it, take the emotion out of it, and then find the facts out of it, and just find put a different slant on it, a different interpretation on it, and see then what you can pull out of it.
100%. And if you need help with those interpretations, me and Lorna happen to be experts or becoming experts in this. Just by doing it a lot, and we've trained our brains to think in a different way. And for us also, it doesn't always work immediately, but I dare to say we're getting better and better at it. So. We're working on this every single day.
And I think as well, sometimes things surprise you and you think, well, where did that come from? Like, I didn't expect myself to react. Expectations. I didn't expect myself to react like that in this situation. But I think it's cool, because by always stretching and growing and challenging yourself, you're always going to come up with new realizations. You're always going to, and I think that's one thing we're both very good at, is getting curious about, where did that come from? Where has that popped in from? And there's always a reason, and usually it comes down to some sort of belief. And obviously I've worked hard on my beliefs, you've worked hard on yours, but it doesn't mean to say they're never going to pop up again in threatening, or what our brain perceives as threatening situations.
100%. So if you do want any support on this, you know where to find us. And just to make sure you don't forget, we have a competition running on our YouTube. So if you subscribe to our YouTube channel and you take in your details, you have the possibility to win a free one-on-one coaching call with either myself or Lorna. We can talk about this, or we can talk about any other challenge mentally that you have at the moment. So do not forget to put in your draw, or put in your, what do you say? Like, put in your name in the draw. And put in your entry in the draw. And you'll find all the links in the show notes on how to do that. And apart from that, we're going to challenge you to start making strides in your mindset, so you can truly make strides in your riding. And we will see you on the next Magical Monday.
Bye.